Bear with me, I may repeat a few things that Commissioner Dombrovskis has already mentioned, but the intention is to give you a bit more color on the CSRD and taxonomy parts of this omnibus packages which have just been presented. So, let me just start by taking a step back and recalling why this all started. So we are talking here about the burden and the costs associated with reporting, which we are addressing clearly through these packages. But actually reporting started before this legislation was put forward. And it was actually something that the market demanded because sustainability was an issue, people wanted information, so everyone was reporting, but there was no defined standard, no specific format, and it became overcomplicated. So there was clearly this need and this demand coming from the market to have a proper framework for sustainability reporting. And that is why the sustainability reporting requirements were designed. That being said, as Commissioner Dombrovskis emphasized, things have changed, and we also admit that some of the requirements put forward had unintended consequences, and it is time to address those difficulties and do better. So looking at the both making sure that we alleviate the burdens and the costs of reporting, but maintaining, preserving the anchor in our Green Deal objectives. It is striking the right balance between these two. So first one, which was already mentioned by Commissioner Dombrovskis, is the Stop the Clock proposal, which will follow, or which we intend to propose that it follows a fast track. It is just to give companies of Wave 2 and Wave 3, so the ones not yet reporting, an additional 2 years. This will give them legal certainty because they will have enough time to understand what exactly will be the final outcome of the legislation proposals or changes that we will be discussing, and they will not incur into costs which may prove to be irrelevant. So this is the first part. Another 2 years and pushing these requirements forward. On the CSRD, so the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, we have very substantial and ambitious simplification targets in a proportionate way. So around 80% of companies will be descoped from CSRD. It will apply only to all companies with more than 1,000 employees or a turnover above 50 million. This does not mean that 80% of the companies will no longer report. It just means that they won't have to, which is a substantial difference. Because, as I said before, what we saw even before this framework existed is that many companies already wanted to report because their customers wanted to know, because their investors wanted to know, because they think this is an important element, a strategic element for their marketing position. So there will be plenty of reasons. What we are saying is that they will assess whether they want to do it or not, but it will no longer be mandatory. For those who wish to do so, or need to do so because they are included in the value chain of bigger companies, they will have a much simplified voluntary standard. So even if they still have to report because they are part of the supply chain of one company still in scope, then they will have a much simple standard. And we are telling both the big companies and the auditors that this voluntary, simple standard is enough for regulatory purposes. So they will not have to report more than this, even if they have, for the reasons that I mentioned. Another important thing of this de-scoping that we are proposing is also that it aligns with the CSDDD. We are aware of often referred to inconsistencies between different parts of our legislation. So this is also alignment with the CSDDD, and hence the decision to go for this threshold of 1,000 workers and the 50 million turnover. We will also require, as Commissioner Dombrovskis said, that the assurance providers, so the auditors, comply with this simplified new framework, and we go from limited assurance to reasonable assurance, which has a major impact in bringing down costs. We are also making taxonomy reporting voluntary for companies which have a turnover below 450 million euros. This is also very important. At the same time, we are accompanying this package by a reassessment of the ESRS, or the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, to reduce the data points and make the reporting more meaningful and more focused. We are publishing today a 4-week consultation with amendments to the Taxonomy Disclosure Delegated Act and the Environment and Climate Delegated Act. So we're talking about level 2 legislation. And the adjustments we are making to these 2 delegated acts will allow us the following. Companies remaining in scope, for those companies remaining in scope and for those who wish to voluntarily report, the simplification measures will eliminate close to 70% of the data points on the reporting templates. We are introducing also a materiality threshold of 10% into taxonomy. So this means that companies can focus their efforts on assessing taxonomy compliance on both eligibility and alignment of the activities that actually represent a significant share of their revenues, or capital or operational expenditures. We further reinforce the proportionality of the taxonomy, allowing companies not to report on alignment of operational expenditure if their eligible activities do not exceed 25% of their cumulative turnover. Non-reporting entities will be excluded from the denominator of the green asset ratios, an issue that also kept coming up when we talked to stakeholders. And this is in particular applicable to banks, so by eliminating them from the denominator, we make not only the calculation easier, but more meaningful. We postpone also until 2027 the application of the trading book KPI, Key Performance Indicator, and the fees and commission KPI for banks. We simplify and shorten the reporting templates, leading to a reduction of 66% for non-financial undertakings and 89% for credit institutions. And what benefits credit institutions does benefit the real economy, because it will make credit easier and cheaper. We simplify certain provisions under the criteria, the famous, some call infamous, do no significant harm. We reduce the focus of this to pollution prevention and control regarding the presence and use of chemicals, because of their specific relevance when we talk about sustainability. So this will also facilitate compliance and significantly reduce administrative burdens on reporting companies that operate in all economic sectors under the taxonomy. But we are still, as I said to begin with, preserving the Green Deal objectives. We are ensuring that we keep in scope the largest companies, which are more likely to have an impact on environment and people. We are, by reassessing the information and data points that are really meaningful, we make reporting more focused, and we also make, for those who need this information, make it easier to find and easier to read and understand. By giving the companies the choice to opt out of some of the reporting requirements, we create space for them to make their own assessment of the usefulness of this reporting. So it will no longer be purely a compliance exercise. It becomes a strategic positioning, which I am convinced that many companies will still want to make. But it will be a strategic decision, not just a compliance exercise. We also foster, with explaining that reporting on partial alignment is possible, we are also promoting gradual adjustment, because partial alignment is very important for companies still on the transition phase. It's not just about who is already green. is about those who are making the journey to become sustainable, to become green. And by partial alignment, these companies will be able to give relevant information to investors, and investors to know how they are on that journey, how close they are to becoming really green. And this helps facilitate understanding and obviously financing of the most relevant part of our corporate sector, which is made of companies still transitioning to become green. And of course, we are also preserving the core element of the Green Deal, which is the double materiality. Just two final notes. One is that reducing regulatory burdens and simplifying is very important for competitiveness, but the effort cannot stop there. A lot more needs to be done to make our economy more competitive. And one very final note, that when we worry about the companies, when we worry about the environment, we are worried about the people. Because preserving the Green Deal objectives, having a sustainable environment, means that people can have healthier lives and be more sheltered from climate events in particular that threaten their lives and their livelihoods. And also by supporting the corporate sector, we are making sure that people will have better opportunities to find good jobs with good salaries. So in the end, whatever we do, and that is, I think, pretty obvious, is about the people, about our citizens to